Hey, I was just thinking, you know how certain memories are just stubborn? They come rushing back, complete with the smell, the exact feeling of the moment, like you could reach out and touch them again. And there's one in particular that's been visiting me a lot lately. Not our very first time, back in the library, all that quiet, the book on the high shelf, your silent help. That was the beginning of everything, wasn't it? But what came after, a few months later? That cafe, do you remember? The Golden Leaf Cafe, on a kind of gray day, smelling like rain and smelling like a whole lot of my fumbling attempts to get to you. That day. That day. As soon as I walked in, the smell, that was the first thing that anchored me that day. Not just the obvious scent of freshly ground coffee, strong and inviting, but something more complex. There was a note of almost burnt sugar hanging in the air, maybe from some caramel gone wrong in the espresso machine, mingled with the aroma of old wood from the furniture and floor, and a faint touch of dampness coming from people entering, shaking off umbrellas, and bringing in the scent of the light rain that was starting to fall outside. It was a cocoon of aromas and sounds, the metallic clink of spoons against porcelain, the low bubble of conversations, the intermittent hiss of the steam wand, creating a constant, strangely calming soundtrack. I had chosen that cafe, the Golden Leaf Cafe, almost on instinct. I needed a refuge, a place with real walls and low light, a counterpoint to the grayness settling in outside, and, to be honest, a bit inside me too. I found a table in the corner, dark wood slightly worn under my fingers. Near the window fogged up by the humidity, I ordered a cappuccino, my standard order for moments like these, seeking the warmth of the cup in my hands more than the caffeine. And while I waited, I took out my sketchbook, the thick pages, the familiar smell of graphite. Sometimes, losing myself in the lines was the only way to silence the internal noise. I started sketching without much purpose. Maybe the condensation on the window pane, maybe the distorted reflection of the lights on the wet street. It was then that my gaze wandered, almost unintentionally scanning the cozy space, and it stopped, froze. On the other side of the cafe, near a bookshelf that seemed part of the rustic decor, there you were. My heart gave a painful stumble in my chest, a physical echo of that other day, months ago. The library, that heavy, almost sacred silence, me, hidden behind a cap and a mask, seeking anonymity and a specific book, the high shelf, my silent frustration, and then, you, appearing like a calm mirage, effortlessly reaching the heavy book and handing it to me with a simple gesture, a look that saw just a guy needing help, no recognition, no commotion, just pure, anonymous kindness. That moment had been like finding an oasis of normalcy in the middle of the desert of my public life, a breath of fresh air I didn't even know I desperately needed. And there you were, again. The same calm presence emanated from you, even from a distance, even in a completely different setting. You were holding a book, but your gaze was lost outside, on the dance of the fine rain on the sidewalk, a thoughtful expression on your face, softly lit by the yellowish glow of a nearby lamp. It was you, unmistakably you. The memory of the library didn't come back as a story, but as a feeling, that deep relief, that silent gratitude. And now, seeing you there, that feeling mixed with an electric current of nervousness and opportunity, I had to talk to you. This time, it couldn't just be a stammered thank you and an escape. I needed to know more about the person who had given me such a genuine moment. But what to say? My mind went into a spiral. Hi, remember me? The guy too short to reach a book in the library? Pathetic. Hi, I loved how you completely ignored the fact that no, even worse. My stomach started churning. The warmth of the coffee didn't seem to reach my hands, which were suddenly cold and clammy. I looked at my cappuccino that had just arrived, the carefully drawn foam art starting to dissolve. I took a deep breath of the steam, smelling of milk and coffee, trying to anchor myself. Okay, Jungkook, calm down. It's just a person who was incredibly kind to you once. The least you can do is go over and thank her again, maybe? Simple. I gathered courage that seemed scraped from the bottom of the barrel. I pushed my chair back, the creak of wood on the floor sounding absurdly loud in my ears. I stood up, took 2, maybe 3 steps, trying to look casual, as if I were just going to admire that bookshelf. My eyes were fixed on my invisible goal, but my peripheral awareness was entirely on you. That's when it happened. The waiter, coming from the opposite direction, fast, balancing a tray that looked too big for him. The impact was more of a shoulder bump than a collision, but it was enough. The tray wobbled violently, cups clinked like alarm bells. A steaming teapot danced on the edge. By some miracle of balance and reflex, nothing hit the floor, but a few drops of hot tea splattered into the air, and the sound seemed to echo through the cafe, silencing nearby conversations. All eyes turned to the small epicenter of chaos, including yours. Your eyes met mine for a fleeting instant. There was surprise there, maybe mild curiosity. I felt my entire face catch fire. I muttered a sorry to the waiter, who gave me a look of pure professional resignation, and retreated, nearly tripping over my own feet. Back to the relative safety of my table, I sat down abruptly, feeling the collective gaze weigh on me. First attempt, a complete disaster. Great start to repaying her anonymous kindness, causing a scene. I stayed there, hunched over, for what felt like too long. I feigned intense interest in my drawing, which now looked like it had been done by a nervous child. The cafe's noise returned to its normal rhythm, but for me, the awkward silence lingered. Had she recognized me from the library and was now thinking, "Oh, it's that weird, clumsy guy"? The thought was mortifying. I took a few deep breaths, glanced stealthily over the rim of my cup. You had turned your attention back to the window, or perhaps the book in your lap. You seemed unfazed. Maybe she really hadn't connected the dots, or maybe she was just too polite to show amusement at my clumsiness. That gave me a sliver of hope. New strategy, indirect approach, the bookshelf. It was a solid plan. Pretend interest in the titles, maybe make a comment about one of them. It seemed less invasive, more natural. I stood up again, this time with the caution of a jewel thief, scanned the perimeter. Waiters, none in sight, customers moving. Just an older lady heading to the restroom in the back. Path clear. I walked slowly, hands in my jacket pockets, trying to project an aura of just strolling and thinking. I reached the vicinity of the bookshelf. My heart was beating harder now, a dull drum against my ribs. I was only a few feet away, the faint scent I associated with you, something floral perhaps, mixed with the smell of books and rain, was clearer here. I stood there, pretending to read the titles on the spines. Some were classics, others looked like art books, quite similar to the one you'd handed me in the library. Coincidence? Or maybe we had similar tastes. The line was ready in my head. Wow, they have a pretty interesting photography selection here, don't you think? Simple, relevant, considering our first silent interaction over a photography book. It was time. I took a deep breath, preparing to turn and speak, to finally break the ice. Ring, 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 Papa, power up. No, it couldn't be. My phone, in the inner pocket of my jacket where I rarely kept it, and the ringtone, not a normal one. It was an over-the-top electronic snippet from an old video game song I used for a specific group of friends, and it was on maximum volume. The synthetic, absurdly loud sound ripped through the calm cafe atmosphere like a chainsaw. If the glances were quick during the waiter incident, now they were fixed, penetrating, and I knew without a shadow of a doubt that you were looking directly at me, with one eyebrow slightly arched. Was there amusement there? Definitely. Maybe a little pity too. Panic took over. My fumbling hands dove into the inner pocket, fighting the lining which seemed to have developed claws. The ringtone continued, relentless, each power-up sounding like a hammer blow to my dignity. Finally, I grabbed the device. My slippery fingers nearly dropped it. I mashed the side button hard, silencing the sonic assault. The silence that followed felt even heavier than before. I could feel the waves of silent judgment. I gave a weak smile to no one in particular, a mute apology to the universe, and made my second strategic withdrawal of the day, heading back to my table like a dog with its tail between its legs. Second attempt, a nuclear disaster. Now I wasn't just clumsy. I was the guy with the most embarrassing ringtone of the century. The image of the calm, anonymous guy from the library was officially destroyed. I sat there for a long, long time. The cappuccino was definitely cold now, but I drank it anyway, needing something to do. I sketched more fiercely in the notebook, angry, frustrated lines that formed nothing recognizable. The voice of reason screamed, "Give up, idiot! Go home! You've embarrassed yourself enough for a lifetime." But then, my gaze found you again. You had returned to your book, a small smile still lingering on your lips. That's what gave me the final push, that smile. It didn't look like mockery. It looked amused, as if you found the whole situation more comical than tragic. And the memory of your kindness in the library returned. She hadn't judged me when I was vulnerable and trying to hide. Maybe she wouldn't judge me now for being myself, in my most bumbling version. It was now or never. No strategies, no elaborate plans. Just go over and talk. A simple hi. What else could go wrong? I had already hit rock bottom socially in this cafe. Deep breath. 1, 2, 3 times. Straightened my jacket. Pushed the chair back. Stood up. Started walking towards you. Each step felt like it weighed a ton. The sound of my own heart was so loud it drowned out the cafe buzz. I was close. Close enough to see the texture of the paper in your book, to notice the way your fingers held the page. And then, you looked up. Our eyes met, directly. No filters. No distractions. The world seemed to stop for a second. Time stretched, and I opened my mouth, and nothing came out. Absolutely nothing. The word hi, so simple, so rehearsed, got stuck in my throat, a tight knot of pure panic and self-consciousness. I just stood there, a few steps away from you, like a statue of nervousness, probably wearing the world's dumbest expression. You looked at me. Your eyes were calm, curious, waiting, and I failed, miserably. After what felt like a lifetime of awkward silence, a minimal, almost imperceptible smile touched your lips. You glanced away, returning to your book with a calmness that only heightened my sense of failure. Defeat, final. I turned, body heavy, mind buzzing with self-criticism. I walked back to my table for the third and final time, sat down, feeling a cold emptiness in my stomach. It was over, no more attempts. Time to accept defeat and leave. I started gathering my things with a clumsy, almost irritated haste. I wanted out of there as fast as possible. To escape the scene of my self-inflicted humiliation, I shoved the notebook into my backpack, the pen, my wallet. My mind was focused only on the exit door, on the promise of the cold air outside to clear my hot head of shame. I swung the backpack onto my shoulder with a sharp, impatient movement, and that's when the universe decided to deliver the final blow. I hadn't zipped it properly, or maybe the angle was wrong. I felt a shift in weight, heard a sound, thump, followed by a rustle of paper. My sketchbook, on the floor, open. In the loose pages I kept inside, quick sketches, studies of light and shadow, some very personal ideas for songs, even a scribble of someone's profile focused on reading, scattered across the dark wood floor like dry leaves swept by the wind. I froze, horrified. It wasn't just embarrassment anymore, it was exposure. My most private thoughts, my most vulnerable scribbles, right there, visible to anyone passing by. A chill ran down my spine. I squeezed my eyes shut, wishing fervently the floor would open up and swallow me whole. I braced myself for the final act of humiliation, kneeling to pick up my scattered secrets under the curious gazes of other customers. But before I could move, before the first wave of shame could even recede, I heard a soft sound, the gentle rustle of fabric against the floor, the sound of someone kneeling near me. I opened my eyes, and my heart stopped. It was you. There, kneeling on the floor in the middle of my mess, without a word, without hesitation, you began gathering the scattered pages. Your hands moved with a delicacy and care that left me breathless. You weren't just picking up papers. You seemed to be handling something important, treating my scribbles with a respect they probably didn't deserve, just like that day in the library, with that heavy book. There was a quiet efficiency in your gesture, a total lack of judgment. I stood there, frozen for a long second, just watching. The cafe noise seemed to recede into the immense distance. The smell of coffee, wood, and rain seemed to concentrate around us. The yellow lamplight created a small, improvised stage for the two of us there, on the floor. Finally, the shock wore off, and reality hit me. I snapped out of my stupor, and knelt too, beside you. Our shoulders almost brushed as we bent down to gather the remaining papers. We worked in silence, but it was a completely different silence from the previous ones. Not the awkward silence of my failed attempts, nor the distant silence of the library. It was a shared silence, intimate, a silence of collaboration, of tacit mutual understanding. And miraculously, as we gathered my drawings, the shame began to dissipate. The nervousness gave way to a feeling of connection. Your presence there, so close, offering help in my most vulnerable moment of the day, was incredibly comforting. I could feel the warmth emanating from you. Or maybe it was just my own blood starting to circulate normally again, the soft perfume I'd noticed earlier. Yes, it was floral, maybe jasmine, mingled with the familiar scent of my sketchbook paper, creating a unique and strangely calming fragrance in that small space we created on the cafe floor. When the last page was collected, you handed me the stack you had gathered, carefully aligning it with the one I held. Our fingers brushed for an instant, a light touch, almost imperceptible, but it sent an unexpected wave of warmth up my arm, straight to my chest. "There," you said, breaking the silence. Your voice was soft, melodious, exactly as I might have imagined. And then, you smiled. Not the minimal smile from before, but a genuine open smile that lit up your face and made tiny crinkles appear at the corners of your eyes. A smile that warmed something deep inside me. "Happens to the best of us," you added, with a lightness that told me you really weren't judging me for any of it. "Thanks," I managed to say, my voice a bit hoarse with emotion and relief. "Thank you so much. I think I was collecting disastrous moments today." Your laugh was low and clear, a delightful sound that made my own smile emerge, shy but real. "At least you'll have material for funny stories," you replied, still smiling. Your gaze drifted down to the pile of drawings in my hands. "You're talented, really." My heart leaped again, this time from pure surprise and gratitude. "Oh, they're just ideas, scribbles," I mumbled, feeling the heat rise to my face again, but in a good way. "Even ideas need good lines," you said, and your gaze was direct, sincere, and yours are great. We stayed there, still half-crouched, looking at each other for another instant. The world outside our little circle seemed to have disappeared. All the tension, all the awkwardness, my entire history of failures in that cafe, it all dissolved in that simple exchange, that unexpected validation. The connection I'd felt in the library, silent and fleeting, was there again, stronger, more palpable. We stood up together. I held the rescued notebook and papers like a fragile treasure. You straightened the hem of your pants. The moment seemed about to dissolve, and I couldn't let that happen, not again. Look, I started, my voice gaining surprising firmness, fueled by a wave of now or never. I know my previous approaches were, let's say, less than ideal. Your small smile encouraged me to continue, but I really wanted to thank you for this, and for that book in the library months ago. You probably don't remember, but I remember, you interrupted softly. The high shelf, the photography book, and the guy in the cap trying to be discreet. There was an amusing glint in your eyes. Wow, she remembered. Not just the act, but me. Or at least my attempt at discretion. I felt a mix of relief and a new wave of nerves. Oh, so you noticed? It was hard not to notice the silent struggle, you said, with an enigmatic smile that made me laugh, but it was a noble attempt. The lightness in your voice, the way you addressed the memory, it was perfect. It broke any remaining tension. So, I continued, feeling hope grow exponentially. To redeem myself for my clumsiness and thank you properly, would you accept a coffee? Or tea? Or whatever they serve here? My treat, of course. Your smile widened, and for one glorious moment I thought I'd done it. I'd love to, really, but... the dreaded but. My heart sank like a stone. I already paid my bill, and I'm super late to meet a friend. I should have left like 10 minutes ago. Oh, was all I could manage. The disappointment was a bitter taste in my mouth, so close. Right, no problem. I totally understand. I tried to keep my tone light, hide the blow. But, you said again, and this time, your eyes met mine with an intensity that reignited the flame of hope. It was really good seeing you again, even with all the action, she laughed, referring to my mishaps. Action is a polite way to put it, I laughed along, but it was really good seeing you too, truly. The moment hung there, charged with unrealized potential. I couldn't let it slip away like this. Listen, I said, my voice a bit rushed now, feeling time slipping away. Since you really have to go, could I maybe get your contact info? A number or, I don't know, anything? So we could grab that coffee another day. A day when I promise not to spill anything or play video game music. I pulled my phone out of my pocket with almost desperate speed, already opening the ad contact screen. My hands were visibly shaking now, but it was pure adrenaline and anticipation. You hesitated for a second that seemed to stretch for an eternity, where I replayed all my mistakes of the day, and then, you smiled. That smile that had already etched itself into my memory. Sure, you said softly. Why not? Relief, a wave so strong it almost left me breathless. I felt a huge grin spread across my face. Great, perfect, I said, maybe a little too loudly. I positioned my fingers over the screen, ready to type. It's, you started to say, probably the beginning of your name or number. But the universe apparently had other plans for me that day, or maybe just a cruel sense of humor. Your phone rang, loud, shrill, urgent. It wasn't a video game ringtone, but it had the same power to stop time and change everything. You glanced at the screen, and all the lightness instantly vanished from your face. Genuine worry took over. Oh my God, you murmured, answering immediately. Hello? What? Seriously? Where are you? Stay calm. I'm heading there right now. Stay right where you are. Your voice was tense, filled with urgency. You hung up, your distressed gaze fixed on me but clearly seeing through me, already thinking about what you had to do. Sorry, so sorry, you said, quickly. Your voice trembling slightly. You grabbed your bag and book from the table in one swift motion. My friend, something happened. I have to go, now. Of course, absolutely, go. I hope it's nothing serious, I managed to say, my own disappointment buried under the urgency of her situation. You gave me one last look, a complex mixture of genuine apology, frustration, and maybe, just maybe, a silent promise that this wasn't the end. And then, you turned and hurried towards the door. See you around, you called over your shoulder, your voice already a little distant. And then, you were gone. The cafe door closed with a soft thud, leaving behind the smell of rain and the lingering feeling of your rushed presence. I stood there, motionless in the middle of the cafe, my phone still in my hand, the screen glowing with an empty, new contact. The sketchbook, held securely in the other hand, the pages now all together, thanks to you. The smell of coffee and vanilla and old wood filled the space again, but it felt less welcoming now. The murmur of conversations, the clinking of cups, everything seemed to return to normal. But for me, something fundamental had been interrupted. I didn't get your contact info, again, by a hair. The feeling was profoundly bittersweet, a mix of sharp frustration at the opportunity lost at the very last second and something else. Something that wasn't defeat. I slowly put my phone back in my pocket, took a deep breath, the air feeling heavy. I looked out the fogged window, but the street had already swallowed you up. I went back to my table, gathered the rest of my things with almost ceremonial care this time, paid the bill, nodding thanks to the cashier, walked out of the Golden Leaf Cafe, leaving the warmth and the unfulfilled promise behind. Outside, the light rain had become a bit heavier. The cold air on my face was almost welcome. And as I started walking down the wet sidewalk, adjusting the now securely closed backpack on my shoulder, the memory pulsing strongest wasn't of my stumbles, the embarrassing ringtone, or the scattered sketchbook. It was the feeling of your calm, your silent help, repeated in 2 different settings. Your genuine smile, your laugh, the way you remembered the library, not me as a public figure, but as the guy in the cap struggling with the shelf. The real, palpable connection, born first in anonymous quiet, and then reborn amidst my personal chaos. That day at the cafe, it was an emotional roller coaster. Frustrating, yes. Incomplete, absolutely. But it wasn't a failure. It was a step, a significant reunion that, despite the abrupt ending, solidified the importance of that first silent encounter. That first chord in the library had found its second chord there, in the cafe. The melody was still incomplete, the story unfinished. But now, more than ever, I felt it was worth waiting for the rest of the music. Hope, stubborn and resilient, remained. Maybe next time the universe would be on our side.
Did you enjoy this memory? Subscribe, like, and leave a comment below. Click here to discover more memories.